What is going on, Governors? Chiscool here, and today we're casting the Rise of Kingdoms Global Champions Grand Prix for 2025. And joining me in the booth is none other than Brian Koo. Welcome, sir. How are you? I'm hyped for today's matches.
Chisco, how's it going? Always great to be casting with you. Hello to everybody watching. And yeah, man, I'm really psyched for this one as well. Two very familiar teams to the international community, 748W and 2377, and two of the best teams as well. This should be a great match.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always try to bring a very high level of energy, but of course, today, it's my own kingdom that's battling in 2377 versus 748W. So let's take a little bit of time. Let's talk about who these teams are, what we expect in today's matchup, and then shortly we will jump into the match right when it is starting. So just to give you all a little bit of context, 748W is 2748 from the international servers. 2377 is from 2377 in the international servers. As far as best results and season results, 748W was top 4 in the realm of best stat, and 2377 was top 8 in the realm of Horus. And their highest OL result in history, 748W was the champion of best stat in season 8, and 2377 was the champion of best stat in season 6. So obviously these teams, both being international teams, both having a lot of history here, have a lot of punch and a lot of experience. And fun fact, the winner of today's match gets the honor of fighting 60GT. So there is a tough road ahead. And today we are casting the bottom bracket. BK, what insights do you have about these teams and the way that they play? Because I know you like to go back and often watch the game tape and bring in some of those insights. So I'm really interested for that.
Yeah, listen, Ark of Osiris in many ways is like a football game, and we are in football season, and your tape is your resume, as they say in football. And I think that when it comes to these two teams, I'm not going to say the tape is the resume. I think the results are the resume, but the tape tells more of the story here. And listen, Chiz, we've cast 748W in the past. Their leader, Viet Minh, has been their leader for quite a while. I think that 748W, in my opinion, is the stronger team here, the more accomplished team here. They finished higher in the Grand Prix in the past and have had just really impressive results so far in this Grand Prix. They beat 489. They dominated a Chinese team last week, and then they had a very close match against Beer in the match that they lost. 748W has a lot of players from their original kingdom, 2748, but they also seem to have brought in several Korean players to their team this season. It looks like about half their team is Korean. And so I think that 748W is a team that, by virtue of their past success, they have managed to bring in a lot of other kingdoms' talent to their team. And on the other hand, I think 2377 is mostly players from your own kingdom. It's mostly players who are your teammates for 2377, more of a homegrown team here. And really, they have overachieved, in my opinion, in this Grand Prix so far. They pulled a really, really nice upset last week against 21YL, winning by about 6,000 points. And that means that this is going to be 2377's best finish ever in the Grand Prix. They've only ever finished in the top 16. I believe this making it to where they are now means they're in the top 12, if I'm not wrong. So, or maybe even the top 8. Yeah, I guess that's the resume of the teams. As far as styles, I think because 748W is the favorite, we probably can expect them to be a little more conventional in this match, and I think it's actually more likely that 2377 is more of the risk-taking team here. But I don't know, how does that jive with your understanding of, your alliance? And also, like, do you think that they play well in that sort of risk-taking underdog role?
Well, I'll say this. 2377, as someone who has been in the kingdom for multiple KVKs now, has so many people interested in playing so many of the events that we typically have to field many teams. And so I'd have to actually look at the roster, which I have not done, but it would not in any way surprise me if the roster is 100% 2377 players. Because they all enjoy playing with each other, and they would rather, if I had to guess, they would rather win or lose together than try to make a team that is the best possible team for the sake of doing so. In other words, they almost certainly didn't take advantage of the opportunity to like recruit whoever they wanted and would have formed their own group. But, I should actually look at the roster, which I probably could do now, except we're about to jump into the match. And I will say, to your point about, are they going to take risks or are they going to do stuff that's different? Looking at the historic use of skills here, it does seem that 2377 is a risk taker. They have sneaky tactics. They have Heaven's Grace. These are not what seem to be the meta skills, which means they're doing something different. That doesn't mean it's better or worse, but they're doing something different. It is also worth mentioning, though, that 748W has used War Drums and Master Strategy, which is also not on the sort of core plan that we've seen a lot of teams use, where they're using Energetic, they're using Desert Storm, they're using Time Warp, they're using No Mark, they're using To the Death. Like, those are the sorts of skills that most teams seem to be deploying. In fact, these teams also deploy those skills, with 2377 having slightly fewer usages of To the Death. But I'm going to pull this match up now, and as I do that, I would be kind of curious. So I'm entering into the match literally now. What do you think the score is going to be? Is this a close match, or is this going to be a blowout one way or another?
So it feels to me like this might be like about a 5 or 6K win for 748W.
Wow,
I don't think they have to.
You're confident.
Yeah.
You're coming into this. You're like 748W is going to win, and they are going to win by a pretty confident margin.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be comfortable, right? I think that 748W. What's so interesting is that Viet Minh in the past has always been like this big risk taker, unconventional type of guy, and you saw that they did use Master Strategy earlier in the tournament, like you mentioned. And so, but if they can just button it up and play really solid, I think that they just end up putting so much pressure on. And it looks like the gates are kicking off here. So, I just think we're going to see very sharp play from 748W. And the question for me is whether your teammates here can just make some really, really cool choices to change things around here.
Well, I will say this. Both teams here deploying Energetic at the start. What's your feeling on Energetic versus stocking up? Because I feel like what we've seen and I perceive to be is sort of like higher skill plays potentially. And I'm just going to adjust this so I'm not blocking the skill bars here with our little portraits. But it seems like the higher skill play is stocking up. Is that right?
I think in general, stocking up is like a higher skill play. But, in last week's match with 2377, I think a big reason they won against 21YL is that 21YL used stocking up for the second time before the second arc, but they weren't able to get enough points to match the point output of 2377. For that final critical arc where both teams went all in, 2377 used 9 points To the Death plus Desert Storm, while 21YL, they used stocking up and they used Energetic but then all they had was to the death for that mid fight. So it can go wrong with stocking up, and I do think also worth noting, I don't think either of these teams have used the skill yet in this tournament.
Yep, I think neither team is likely to have that on their bar at this point. And I don't think you want both energetic and stocking up. Like, it's a one or the other, it seems, among the teams that are performing super well. And, honestly, here's what I would expect. I expect each team to use No Mark into the death, and then to use Time Warp to do both of them again. That's kind of my anticipation of, or expectation of what we'll see today, is just very clean use of No Mark to the death, Time Warp, No Mark to the death. And the question will then just be like, well, how many arcs will be exchanged? And that's where things kind of get spicy, and there's a bunch of question marks. So from my perspective, my prediction is that it'll look pretty even up until this first arc, and then we see, is everybody going for the arc? You can't have nobody go for the arc, right? Like, it's too many points. So I'm very curious to see how much each team commits to this first arc.
It's going to be interesting. Like you said, there is a sort of conventional strategy of to the death, No Mark, Time Warp, and then using No Mark again. But within that, there's actually so much variation, right? And you alluded to it, like, do you go middle or not? And the other variation that we have to think about here is gathering. How many marches do you allocate to gathering? These two teams here are actually two of the lowest gathering teams left in this tournament. 748 is literally the lowest gathering team left in the tournament, and 2377 has been outgathered in most of their matches. So they keep it a little simple as far as like not doing gathering, so they can be more focused on that to the death, No Mark dichotomy. But like, do you mix it up during this match? Like, if you're 2377, do you use more gatherers and then just try to like be neutral everywhere else? There is just so much variation within the strategies that exist. And,
I think the lack of gathering from both of these teams is reflected in their choice to use energetic instead of stocking up. And I think that in a strategy where you are doing more provisioning, the stocking up is likely to be better. Look, I'm not playing this season of the Grand Prix, so I could be wrong on that. But my observation would be that. Now, what's interesting here, we got a couple plays being made. One is for the Shrine of Life. We see 748W with a big group moving down toward it, then adjusting to go contest 2377, who is charging in little bit broken up. Like, what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, they got a good jump on them. Yeah,
you group and then move, not move and then group, is what I have often said in times of war in KVK, right? Let's group up, let's move together, rather than move into the enemy and then group up by virtue of getting to the enemy. Big tussle going on by the Sky Altar and the Desert Altar as well on the top lane. So a lot of action unfolding now, and we do see a little bit of a dance going on by the Shrine of Life.
Yeah, and Chiz, this is the pressure that 748W is going to put on 2377 in this match. They diverted. Look at how clean this was by 748. They diverted just enough marches to the Shrine of Life to potentially take it down. And then at the same time, they also ambushed that group of red marches that were walking into them in a staggered format. So like, they accomplished both of those things, not with strategy, but with the individual player choices of the people in this lane. And I just think when you have really elite talent like 748W does, they just end up being able to apply pressure in a way that makes it look like it's a strategical thing, but it's just the people playing really, really good.
Well, we do see a shocking amount of this map is blue for 748W. So their execution here obviously paying off, taking all the outposts on all sides. This actually is pretty concerning because I think first capture points are still available for these outposts in the bottom.
Yeah, it's a good point. I actually never thought about that, but the first capture is kind of nice, actually.
Yeah, would be a big miss for 2377 if they're not getting the first capture points on their own outposts.
Looks like they're going to lose them all, right? That's 240 first occupation points that they're losing right there. So it's like a 500-point swing almost. Yeah,
it adds up. And we see that No Mark, by the way, was used by 748.
748.
So
wow.
They are moving in on the building plan and have done so, I think, very aggressively and very well. Obviously, holding this many buildings is not what I was expecting at the start. And in just a matter of 30 seconds, they're going to get first capture on this desert altar. And it seems like an almost certainty that they will get that first capture. The pressure was only just arriving to that desert altar. And if that thing's full, there's no way they take that down in 20 seconds. So this opener is massive, really massive. And I think a part of the reason they're able to pull this off is with that extremely early activation of no mark, making it so that they're able to take these buildings a minute faster, right? I was looking at this going, why is it that, you don't typically see this, but they already have this building in first cap, and it's that no mark activation. It's a big one.
It's huge. I mean, you look at these altars that give 750 points for first occupation. You really have to count that as 1,500 because you're denying the other team from ever getting those points. So a 1,500 point swing at that altar. It looks like, I'm not sure about the sky altar on the top side. I wish I could tell you who got the first capture here, but it's like you're getting so much value for this no mark. When you add in the outposts, that's another 500 points. So like minimum, they're getting 2,000 points for this no mark already, not even counting the points that they're making per minute here, where at the moment 740W is actually generating more than 1,000 points per minute, whereas 2377 is barely generating any points at all right now. So it's an early no mark, but like look at how productive this no mark is. Like really cool. I haven't seen this a no mark this early myself either. I wonder if this is like a pocket strategy here, or if this is something pretty common.
I haven't seen this before, and I think it makes the choice of energetic make a lot more sense, because I don't think this would have been possible with stocking up at the start of the match. So I think if you're doing something like this, the energetic makes a lot of sense, but otherwise I am like fully on board with stocking up being kind of like the higher skill play. And like, of course it would potentially be a higher skill play. It literally requires more of you. Energetic, you don't have to do much. It asks literally nothing of you other than perhaps a little bit of time gets you value, right? Stocking up, it's not exactly time gets you value, it's provisioning gets you value. And so you have to do, I think, a little bit more for that. So that's kind of my stance at this point on those two skills. My, backseat.
Your philosophy.
Backseat Ark coordinator perspective, because I'm not playing or coordinating, so I'm like backseat driving on this one. But obviously the building game is very strong for 748, and they have used that to great advantage. The thing is that we should be looking at a nearly full skill bar for 2377. So if they're not able to dominate this arc with this ability point advantage that they have, something's gone horribly wrong. And either they're just not able to execute, or 748 has a superior strategy for the use of their ability points. And obviously the leaderboard is telling quite the tale for that right now.
Yeah, huge lead here for 748W with only 2 minutes remaining before this arc. I mean, there's so much action on the sides as 2377 tries to just get back their buildings. And you talked about stocking up and the challenges of using that skill. To me, it all falls in the bucket of if you are trying to do too many things, things slip through the cracks, right? And I think here what we're seeing is that the red team, because it took them so long to get their buildings back, their approach to mid is slipping through the cracks a little bit. They are definitely getting here late. Some of their players coming here from the desert altar are not going to be at full health. But you're right, they do have more skill points, Chiz. They've got a lot more skill points. And I mean, we're early in this match, but this feels like a must-win arc for the red team here. And I do wonder what skills they break out here, whether they want to use to the death or some other mix. To me, this feels like a to the death spot, especially when you get everybody there. And look at these. It looks like they're probably going to have a numbers advantage, right? Because it looks like blue team is focusing the sides again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can send everybody to the middle. Like, they have to hold their buildings here. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that. They have to hold their buildings, and they're getting pressured at Sky Altar right now. They're trying to hold on here. Weird rally. Is that Gorgo secondary? SA primary, Gorgo secondary. New meta that I was not aware of. And the mid fight, here it is. Where's that to the death? It needs to be now, or it's late.
If they feel they need it. You know, I do think they probably understand that they have a numbers advantage at this point. So, like, do you save some of your skill points to use a no mark later on?
Heaven's Grace, definitely, in my opinion, late use for that.
Yeah, late because half their march or some of their marches were like not full health when they got to this fight. But
right,
I actually really like Heaven's Grace there. I think that's a really good skill cast. It's fewer points than to the death, and it does look like 2377 is cleaning up this arc. Yeah.
Yeah, it is enough. And you're bang on that you want to use the right amount of points for the job. So the only thing I get anxious for is like they need to use no mark, they need to use to the death, and they need to use time warp, and they need to do both of those things again. So I guess the play here will be to take this arc and quickly score it, and either they use a no mark, or they go right into another arc and try to use to the death. But the problem they have now is they've got to be nearly capping on ability points. And the death of a team is their ability points getting wasted, in my opinion. That's like, this is how teams lose, is they have ability points rotting. And this arc is not safe, by the way. This arc is so far from safe. And I am really anxious for this strategy of having those people crash forward and crash to the side. It, at first blush, would seem really logical, but this arc is in grave danger right now. I would rate this as a 7 out of 10 level of danger for this arc. I mean, a very, very serious threat against this arc right now.
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Shiz, we've differed on this before, where you're like, you know, you love the big escort, and I'm like, no, you got to cut it super close every single time. And I think they did cut it close here by sending some marches forward to break off. But you know what? It's not like a huge ambush by the blue team. Like, it's not a full committal ambush.
I guess. I mean, that's a lot of full health marches crashing into these partial health marches in red. I don't know. It looks like it's working out okay, though.
Yeah, the arc carrier did a nice little route. Like, nothing special from the arc carrier, but they just like avoided the fight. They avoided the blue marches. And like, the deeper this arc carrier can get this arc into his or her own territory, it just drastically improves their chances and reduces that danger level you're talking about, where, you know, a minute ago you said it was 7 out of 10. I mean, what would you rate it now?
Yeah, obviously quite safe.
Yeah.
I think the level of restraint and the use of those ability points could really pay off. The thing I think we debate now is like, so what's the payoff going to be? Because they're probably at what, like 7 out of 10 right now? And so even if they score this arc right away and go into another arc, like the timing is weird. They can't just sit on their laurels, per se, score the arc and have to the death and be like, yes, we have an advantage. Because they're going to have points of wasting, I suspect. I guess it depends on what else is on the bar. We know 2377 has some weirder stuff on the bar. Okay, there it is. No mark. I like that choice a lot. Yeah, I think that's a fine choice. They're going to get their buildings back faster as well. It also means that they have an opportunity here to make 748W burn some of their points and waste them if they let this arc run long. That said, for that to really be effective, they need to get bigger control of the building game. So, really interesting dance going on between these two teams right now. And I think by both teams, really good restraint from using their skills. Now, I don't know if 748W, if they had a skill they could have used in that last arc, if it would have mattered. Because it either would have resulted in baiting more points out of 2377 and they still win it. But I don't think it would have been enough to like go from their losing it to their winning it. But they are in this weird spot of having points rot soon, I think, right?
Yeah, I think right now, I think right now, red team's probably at like 3 points, and I would imagine that the blue team is maybe at 5 points right now. So I think they've got a ways to go. I think what we're seeing here is what we talked about pregame, which is that 748W is playing conservatively and 2377 is taking the risks. We see for the top side, for example, that those marches that broke off from the Ark, they actually did take the Desert Altar from 748W, which is really making this no mark a lot better. And, even now, like 2377 here at this fight here, like they pushed forward, they took their own Desert Altar back, and instead of like refreshing or, just standing at the building, they actually tried to like, transition around this mountain cliff here. It's not really working out too great for them, but you just see that the temperament of 2377 is to take risks in this match.
I think the advantage of pushing forward like that is that rather than like go home and come back fresh, what they've done is they've weakened all these marches that are about to attack the Desert Altar. They get themselves sad-faced, and some of them will come back fresh to this fight and be able to contribute in a big way. So I think that's kind of the strategy of running in like that. Although I think that 748 is doing a really good job of trying to leave those marches alone, so they just kind of stay red, right?
Yep. There's a bunch of marches that are out of commission for this fight. It's a good point that little midfield fight actually went okay for the red team. And I will note that 2377 is slightly ahead in the total kills to severely wounded ratio in this match. So from a fighting perspective, they are keeping up with 748W fairly well. And then with this Ark being returned, it's about a 4,000 point lead for the blue team.
Which is still huge.
Insurmountable. It's huge, but the no mark is ticking. So I think the lead is going to get smaller as well. So,
but it's only, I pulled it up, it's only about 300 points per minute. So, no mark is not going to last that long. It's a total of 300 seconds worth of advantage. And I don't know how much time is left on it. I suppose we could kind of look here. So we don't actually have much time left on that no mark. So, also no garrison captain in here is a huge miss in this Desert Altar. I see that Blueberry is trying to get to it. The refresh timing there really cost them a lot. And it's honestly kind of surprising in a world in which you could have as many captains as you wanted ready. Like, there's no reason to leave that garrison without a captain. So that is a huge problem that 2377 now has to deal with to get this garrison back. And I think a few more people that bring captain marches, and they just would have avoided this problem entirely.
It's tough. It's a chaotic situation in terms of like, when do you bring out the backup garrison?
You bring the replacement when you only after the other captain is already in. That's the answer. It's not complicated. It's you take out your captain to refresh when another captain is already knighted. That's my garrison captain perspective.
but in that sense, when they took back that building, it's like, who failed there? Was it the main garrison captain who didn't get there in time, or was it a failure of the backup because the main was refreshing? You know what I mean?
I think there ought to be more captains rotating through, right? In a world where you have access to all the commanders, why not have 3 captains on rotation? Got to fill with something, right? May as well be some captains. Yeah. And the disadvantage is, well, you could have had fewer fat marches filling. So there may be a little bit of a nuance to that, but I think regardless, I would err on the side of caution. Now, they have captured the Ark, so you can see the sort of true score now, which is 13,794 to 10,556, or sorry, 65. So it's pretty close. It's like a 3,200 point game here. But that first no mark just so hugely setting up 748W for success. The real question will be, how do the rest of these arcs go? And all this time without using any skills, is that going to cost 748W anything, or is it going to be fine? And if it costs them something, then this timing from 2377 is really good. If it doesn't, then that no mark play at the start just looks better and better for 748W.
Yeah, I think honestly the return of the Ark when it happened was pretty nice for 748W. I think essentially they're going to fill up their bar just as this second Ark spawns, or maybe slightly before it. And then I think that the red team will be right behind them. I mean, the red team might have 9 points for this Ark, but I don't think they're going to get over. I don't think that they are going to cap their bar too badly here on the blue team. 2377 could have punished them a bit more on that, but I think 2377 again, they're trying to push the envelope here a little bit, and they must have just felt like the timing there was pretty good, and I can understand why, because on the top side, the red team had a very good attack and held that enemy Desert Altar for a long time. As they were returning that Ark, they did finally lose the Desert Altar on the top side. So now that very successful lane can do one more really solid attack and then potentially go to the mid early. I think that timing makes sense for 2377, and for their sake, hopefully it pays off with a good approach to the second mid fight.
Maybe I just don't understand.
Speaking of no garrisons.
Yeah, what is going on? Why is everybody forgetting to bring their garrison captains? Hello?
And why is it always an Arthur? Why is it always the Arthur that they go with?
Arthur?
Well, this is a huge mistake, though. I mean, look at this. 748W worked for a long time to get this building back, and now are they going to lose it because they don't have a garrison captain? There it goes. I mean, unbelievable. Big mistake there for 748W. To me, this was a much bigger mistake than the one on the other side, because this was a less chaotic situation.
It's not a mistake, it's a courtesy. It's, oh, we see you forgot to put your captain in. Here, we're just going to forget to put ours in for a second, too. I will say that 748W did a really good job of taking this back right away, so I don't think that
QSH
2377 benefited as much from that as 748W was able to squeeze out of that situation earlier, but it's a weird situation where Belly Prime and Arthur are the captains of a garrison. Here we are in 2025. But again, I think this...
see the Eleanor who took her sweet time to get there.
Yeah, this to me represents cutting it a little too close. I think you can hear in my calls that I am way, way, way more cautious. I always assume it takes more than it actually does to do the job. And I think the dance that these Ark planners are trying to play is to have exactly what they need, nothing more, nothing less. Here we see energetic being used. So to me, it kind of feels like they're trying to find a way to shed some of these points productively leading up to the mid fight. And, if they stall long enough, they could use something like Dust Up in advance of the fight. It will still be active for the fight. They just need to buy themselves some time. So energetic activation here is a pretty cool play because it's going to cost them some, points to use. They can passively regen in the meantime, and it stalls the clock a little bit leading up to this Ark fight. Maybe they'll use something like Dust Up in advance so those points aren't just rotting.
That's a really good point. I mean, that's a great way to get around maxing out your bar. And I think we're likely not going to see energetic from 2377 just because I do think they're cutting it very close on points for this second Ark. The other advantage that blue team has here is they basically know that 2377 is going to go heavy for this Ark. 2377 needs this Ark because they're so far behind in the match, whereas blue team can really choose to do anything here. It does look like they're doing a heavy mobilization mid, but the option was always on the table there for them to skip this mid and do a side play thing.
So
but I think...
Can I disagree with you there? Because actually, I think both teams have to go for the Ark now. If my understanding of the meta is correct, and I don't know that it is, so hear me out. I think that every match, you need to aspire to use no mark to the death, time warp, no mark to the death. Not necessarily in that exact order, but, swap around your no marks into to the deaths, right? So both teams are trying to use to the death right now. They are absolutely 100% full steam going for this Ark. Both teams. There's neither team, like you're right, that 748W technically has a choice, But I think if they're thinking about it from the perspective of that meta that I think is accurate, I think they're just, both of them are 100% for the Ark here. And it does look like their field is kind of shaping that way.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. It really is a very good point that you're just not playing optimally if you don't use that to the death before you time warp. And this is where you have to use that to the death. You didn't use it the first time. You've got to use it this time. So that is a very good point. It's interesting how like the skill bar to some extent is dictating the choices of these entire teams, where it's like, we've got these skill bars, and that means all of our marches have to go to this exact place at this exact time. But I do think that's like the mentality that these shot callers have to have, is like you have to play optimally. Even if it feels weird, you have to play optimally.
There's that Desert Storm. So they're doing what I thought they might do, which is like use something in advance of the Ark spawn to burn down their points. I feel like if we don't see a mirror play from 2377, this is a bit of a miss. So
yeah, I mean, Desert Storm is huge. Like one team using Desert Storm and the other team not using Desert Storm is literally like the difference in a match.
Yeah, if we don't see something, there it is. Everin with the Desert Storm, evening things up. I do kind of wonder if there wasn't an opportunity for an energetic at some point in all this for 2377, but it's hard to say.
I think they're cutting it pretty close here. We'll have to see if they have enough points for To the Death. We know that the blue team has enough for To the Death, and we see that 748 does have the temple. They're getting charged into here. It's a nice situation for To the Death, and actually 2377 casting To the Death first, and there's that mirrored skill.
This is it. A lot at stake in this Ark. If 2377 gets this Ark, then they are squarely back in the match. The scoreboard starts to even up. If 748W gets this Ark, then they are set up to get the win. They control the tempo, and they have a big leaderboard. Who's it gonna be? Sad faces
like a close fight
everywhere.
Yeah, this is tough to read. It does look like blue has a bit of an advantage here.
I think
Definitely.
so. I think
yeah,
so.
Definitely an advantage for blue.
It's slight, but that sad face calculus does seem to favor blue.
Big pull here by the red team though. Kildy with a nice pull there to keep it a slight question here still, Chiz. I think still a slight question about who's going to grab this Ark.
I don't know. This looks pretty blue to me.
Yeah.
Although amazing grab by the Ark carriers from 2377. This is a major move on their part, installing the Ark. Wow.
Yeah, this can come back. This could come back to haunt 748W later, because I do think, without thinking about it too long, that there has to be an ambush play here for 2377. I think they're down so much that they probably have to try to ambush this Ark, and it's going to take longer for blue team to get it to a safe spot here, so that does give them a better chance for an ambush. Let's see how it's developing. Yeah, looks like the ambush is coming. Looks like the ambush from the top side is definitely developing.
We'll see if this QSH can get the Ark carrier down. Everin activating energetic. So they are trying to set up for something, but don't actively have something. And we do know that there's sneaky tactics potentially on the bar here. If they had the numbers to activate it clustered up and the points to activate it, it would be pretty clever to use that for the march speed advantage and get downfield and sneak past, literally sneak past their opponents to ambush that Ark. But I just don't think they have that in the tank. And I think that if this Ark carrier is able to navigate safely, and like at this point, I think it's just a choice of route, then this is looking really solid for 748W. This is honestly how they would have dreamed it up. Is, you know, we know mark early, we lose the first Ark, but then if we get the second Ark, we are so set up to win. And I think with 26 minutes left in the match, they stall this Ark 13 minutes before they score it. It's going to be extremely difficult for 2377 to get back into the match.
Yeah, if we give them this arc, they have roughly a 7,000 point lead, but they can't really hold it until for the rest of the match unless the arc gets stolen by the red team. So Kilde's sort of playing with fire here a little bit, where like he wants to harass this arc carrier, but he doesn't want to pick up the arc and reset this 15-minute timer. Because obviously 2377, they need to have a third arc in this match. If they're down 7,000 Hirches and they get the last arc, they're only down 3K, and they have generally gathered more. Like they've generally gathered 1 or 2K more points per match than 748W. And I will tell you right now that they do have more gatherers out. The red team does have more gatherers out. So it's a tough spot for 2377 for sure. But with 25 minutes left in this match, there is a way for them to win, I think.
I think I would be more bullish for their position if they had been able to get more done with no mark. But that is my sort of worry for them, is that if the building game is as strong for 748W as I think it is, it's just going to be really hard to make up the point deficit if they aren't getting every single arc. Like, I really think they're in the camp of needing literally all the arcs. And with this arc on its way, it's not quite so clear. Now, this is funny. This is a little funny. Yoshi pestering the carrier. Some folks peeling off to go deal with it. We'll see if Yoshi decides to attempt to pick up this arc. I think it would be a mistake.
I think it would be a big mistake if he did, yeah.
He doesn't have enough support to justify that. I think if more red presence was here, you could justify trying to take this arc. I think he's trying to pick it up, and I'm really not convinced this is the play. He's already under a huge amount of pressure. This is going to reset the timer. I mean, he picks up the arc, and let's see where it goes. Basically nowhere. I feel like that pickup
is...
Yeah, that pickup's a huge miss from my perspective. It's not a relevant distance to have moved that arc. Definitely was not worth resetting the timer.
Yeah, I feel like 2377 is of two minds right now, where they're like, well, maybe we can win by just getting the third arc and playing well on the sides here and gathering. And then there's other players on their team who are like, no, we need to steal this arc. And, you know, we've seen like multiple bellies try to harass this arc carrier to no avail. We now see like, it looks like maybe one player is dive bombing this arc now. So yeah, it just feels like they're a little bit mixed as far as what they should do. And we know just in general that you have to commit to one strategy. You cannot mix and match two different strategies. And it looks like that's a bit of what 2377 is doing right now.
I mean, I would rate this play on field as like 15 marches short of an arc steal. Like it's like the spirit of what they're doing is interesting. And I think they're just like 15 marches short of getting this arc. I think if you put 15 more marches, 3 players every march they have, to this activity, there actually is a reasonable opportunity to get the arc. Now, the reality is that 748W, if they saw that kind of presence, will be more likely to match that presence with their team. So it's not nearly as clear cut as I'm kind of representing it. But I would rate what's going on here as like kind of 15 marches short of a steal.
Yeah, and you wonder if they're maybe 5 marches short of taking this desert altar. Because I think they made a good choice to like cancel the ambush and just take this desert altar. But it's like they're just lacking numbers a little bit at this altar as well. So
yeah, the building push is really good. Like if they actually had the points for sneaky tactics, I think there was a chance they could have got the arc. Yeah, and ambushed. Yeah. Which is why I was saying earlier, like, I wonder if there was somehow an energetic activation in there that could have been used. I don't know the answer to that. How long does energetic take to recover its points for you?
I think if they cast energetic, they might not have been able to cast that desert storm. That's the thing.
Yeah, I imagine that's the case.
Energetic?
But how long does energetic take to recover the points?
Well, I mean, it depends on if you're casting skills, right? Like if you're casting skills, you're recovering those points faster because you're getting like a bonus regen when you cast a skill. I'm not exactly sure like when you break even on energetic, but yeah, no, I'm not honestly not sure. I would imagine it's probably like 5-6 minutes, something like that.
Well, they had a good push on that desert altar, but at the end of the day, that scoreboard is going to be a problem for them. 440 points per minute for both teams here means that 748W is just sitting with a compelling lead and an Ark in their pocket.
But no gathering, or very, very little gathering for the blue team. And at this point, rather substantial gathering from 2377. So it does feel to me like what 2377 is thinking is, okay, we need to at least break even on the sides at this point. We're going to outgather them, and then we're going to win the last arc. And then hope and pray that we've made enough points to close this gap to 0. I mean, I think that's the correct approach. I think that's their only strategy. It's going to be very tough to do.
And an arc, there's a couple ways to win. An arc and an outgather is one way to win, for sure. But I don't think they can win without getting an arc.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if they get an arc, there is a world in which they could outgather. That is a world that exists. I have the data pulled up at the moment, and the 748W average score for gathering is 1,500, and the average score for 2377 is 3,500. So if 2377 actually gathers like the top arc teams do typically, and they get an arc, then they actually win. So there is a world in which they can win, but I think that, again, the situation still is very favorable for 748W for very obvious reasons, and they've got to be just feeling really great about their gameplay and where they're at. There's the time warp. There's no mark. Oh, and it makes sense why they didn't have sneaky tactics to use. It's because obviously time warp was still on the bar and unused. Duh. Obviously. Okay, well, that checks out. So the no mark activation is in, and I like that. They're basically setting up for like, okay, we'll have a lot of points available whenever you score this arc. Because they know this arc is not going to be scored right away. They know that the clock is being run down.
Yeah, this arc is going to get returned at the last second because this is their biggest issue. The biggest issue for 2377 is that they picked up that arc multiple times. They reset the timer, and now look at the situation they're in. This arc can be returned with only 9 minutes left in the match, and then it takes 8 minutes for the next arc to spawn. That only gives the red team 1 minute to return an arc, which is almost impossible, unfortunately.
No, there's not enough time for another arc. I take it all back. If there's only 1 minute, there's not enough time, and they're gonna lose on the mistake of having picked up that arc. That cost them, the literal minutes they needed to have another arc opportunity. So I think that ends up being just a huge unforced error.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I see what they were trying to do there, which is like, look, if we could move that arc a little closer to the altar, and we actually scored at the altar, but they really were like 15 marches short of a steal there. And so I think given that they really didn't have what they needed, that was not a great call to make. That said, you and I have perfect vision. They do not. So it's a lot more difficult for you to make the call in the match compared to us sitting here with literal perfect vision of the entire map, right? So things that are obvious to us are going to look totally different and not so obvious to the shot callers who have much more constrained visibility.
Yeah, and there's a couple of mistakes we've seen in this match that we've attributed to the shot caller, but I would argue that it's actually the players who made these mistakes. Like the garrisons not being in place to me is mostly on the players. Like the players need to be communicating about where their garrison is and if they need a backup or not. Players have to make good decisions about when to bring that backup garrison out versus not. And then as far as the arc goes, it's unless a shot caller is in both sides voice chat saying do not pick up this arc, an individual player can simply be like, okay, the arc's right next to me, it's on the ground, I'm gonna grab it. So it's like, we talked about individual player skill at the beginning of the match maybe being higher on the 748W side, and you see over the course of this match how it's the players' choices that either make the shot caller look good or look bad. Oh, yeah. And look at that. The arc got returned. Wow.
Well, this just turned right back into a match. Energetic activated for 2377. That to me feels like a really weird choice.
Yeah,
so let's talk
choice.
about it. Let's assume best intention and highest skill. So assuming best intention, highest skill, what 748W sees is, these guys might outgather us if we're not careful. I think we need another Ark, is what they just said. You would only score it if you think you need another Ark.
Yeah.
Unless that carrier was just super, 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 super pressured and we didn't see it. But I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think he was. Because he just wasn't. There's just no way he was.
He just wasn't. Okay.
I wasn't watching, but like there weren't any dead marches around him. Like I looked where he was standing after the fight, and there was just like no red marches nearby.
No, I think
there were
he
no
was
sad
safe.
faces.
Yeah. So okay. So assuming it's not a mistake score where it's like, oh, I retreated my marches by accident or whatever. They are afraid that they need another Ark. Unless there's some later part of the tournament that is going to look at point differentials, but I don't think that's the case. No. So they only have to win by one. So the only reason you capture the Ark the way they did is if they're not confident that they're going to win by at least 1 point. And so the only reason you would be confident in that is if you're worried about the gathering, the provisioning. And I think they must be very concerned about that provisioning, because otherwise, like that was in the bag, man. It was literally in your hands. Like, why do that? So I think they saw the same thing we saw, which is an opportunity for a win that they didn't want to have on the board. So what this means...
Wouldn't it be easier... I'm sorry to
just
interrupt.
start... Yeah, you're right. Wouldn't it be easier to just start provisioning?
Yes, exactly.
True. So true. Well, right? Like hey, Chisel, what if you just match the provisioning? You're right. Not a bad idea, bro. That does sound like a much simpler way to approach that. Good bit less risky.
Well, I guess they just don't have any players who want to break out the gatherers. I mean...
Yeah, I am actually a conscientious objector to provisioning, so I won't be participating.
So, I mean, we've got a game on our hands, and, it is true that 748W is, like, making a very explicit choice to do very little gathering in this match. And at this point, 2377 has actually returned about 1,000 points of gathering. So, it's possible that 748W did just get scared off by how many... permanent gatherers are out there in the field for the red team. And they were like, like you said, they were like, well, maybe they're just going to have enough points and we need a third Ark. I do think it's a very weird choice, though. I do think it's just a genuinely weird choice by 748W to return that Ark.
I also feel like now their skilled choices are starting to work against them. Like at the start of match, they obviously executed with incredible excellence. The decisions they made to use that no mark set them up with such a huge lead, which in and of itself is such a huge mental W. And you gotta believe that mental is affecting players. But now they're in the situation where they're not gonna get full skills. It's not possible anymore, I think, for them to enjoy to the death and no mark by the end of the match. Maybe they could do it productively. Maybe they can to the death for the mid fight and still no mark, but I'm not so sure about it. And missing a no mark activation or missing to the death for the mid fight is a pretty big deal. Now, because they have such a commanding lead, they have a lot of options. This is the part where it's like, yeah, 748W is dangerous because they are unpredictable. If they no mark and go for buildings, it's savage. If they go mid into the death, we know who wins. They won last time. So if they just repeat that success, W for them. So now's the part of the match where they're dangerous because of their optionality. You don't know what they're going to do because they have just so many good choices. But they have to do something right. They have to pick one of these things and nail it, right?
Look, I think they're going to almost certainly go middle. One factor we didn't mention when talking about if we assume very intelligent play by the blue team is that they returned that Ark roughly a minute after 2377 cast no mark. So they know that 2377's bar is quite depleted at that point. And so 748W returns the Ark and then knows that they can go into the third mid with more skill points than their opponents. They can cast To the Death and Desert Storm for sure, whereas 2377 might only have To the Death, and that's like a very big advantage for 748W, and I think that's probably what they're thinking. So, and in that sense, we know they're going mid, right? If that was their strategy for returning the Ark, we know they're going heavy mid for this third one.
I think they've got the points for both Desert Storm and To the Death. I think.
You think 2377 does?
Yeah, I do, because they use energetic too. Like I think they're chilling. I think what we might see.
I mean, no mark is a big.
What? Okay, so what about this? What is left on the bar here for 748W?
Time warp and something. It's time warp and something.
748W, Desert Storm activation. They're doing what I said. Remember this? Remember I said this? With energetic. This is why I was anxious about why 2377 wasn't doing this too. They have energetic active. They Desert Storm early. They still have 2 minutes to recover the points before the mid fight happens. I almost feel like if 2377 was in position, they should push the fight now, because I think that the bar of 748W needs a little bit more time to recover. But they aren't in position. They don't have the bodies here yet, so it would be incorrect to push. So this is like a weird situation where I think they're going to squeeze out 11 ability points of value, and that's going to give them edge in this arc, and I think that was their plan all along. I think we're going to see Dust Up, and we're going to see To the Death. And that is...
If that skill is Dust Up, then it's very well done by them to have that extra skill. At the same time, it's only like... all you're doing is adding Dust Up to the repertoire.
Yeah, but they won last time. They won last time, right? Like, you stack another advantage on there. They are so chilling. Everin with the Desert Storm.
Okay,
I would have done it a little bit sooner, because this is, but I think it'll fully do its thing before the fight starts, so it's working out. This is all according to plan, but there's a trick up the sleeve here for 748W, and I can sniff that out from a mile away, and I think they're gonna have a big activation here. And we know there's no tricks left on the bar for 2377. We quite literally know. The only thing they have left is To the Death. That's it. There's the time warp.
I mean, they have Heaven's Grace if they had like an unlimited number of skill points, but this is looking so far like an identical arc to the last one. Both teams are standing in the same place and engaging at roughly the same time, and there's that To the Death again.
Heaven's Grace.
So they didn't have enough for To the Death.
Heaven's Grace deployed.
Oh, look at this!
Double Desert Storm.
They time warped after the first Desert Storm, and then that reset their entire bar, so now they're casting Desert Storm again on top. That's a lot of points that they used. And they've just used... Yeah, they've used 13 points against 7 for 2377.
I don't know why they didn't use To the Death.
They didn't have enough points.
That is crazy. Wow. Well, I really am shocked they didn't have enough points there. This is one of those moments where I feel like stocking up really would have been a powerful option for 2377 to have instead of energetic. Like, I think the way that 748W has used energetic is really quite masterful. And their use of energetic is strong because they're actually taking advantage of the lack of gathering requirement, right? Whereas I'm not so sure 2377 was able to take advantage of the lack of provisioning requirement. In fact, they've been provisioning the whole time, right?
Yep. You know, to me, this is just very modern Rise of Kingdom arc play right here. Like, this is a different approach than we've seen in the past, right? Because you and I, we've played arc for a long time, we've commentated for a long time, but we're not practicing on these Grand Prix servers and getting these reps that these teams are having. So, like, to us, the obvious win, the lock win, was just like hold the arc till there's only a minute left in the match, and then you just like win. But what 748W is doing here is they're saying, okay, they just cast No Mark. We know exactly how many skill points they're going to have for this next mid. And we also know how many points we can generate. And if we just bring a double Desert Storm plus To the Death, we're just always going to beat them with their Heaven's Grace and Desert Storm. Like, it's just a different way of locking the match.
Yeah.
You know, we're locking the match like a old school football coach, where it's like you just run out the clock. And these guys are locking the match like a pack of hornets on the attack, where they're like, we're just going to push the envelope and pressure you so hard that you can't deal with it.
I did say it was going to be like an 11-point combo. I did not predict. It was actually ended up being like a 12-point combo, right? The double Desert Storm.
Yeah, 12-point combo. Yep.
Yeah. I think going for a 12-point combo is something we've seen a lot of teams do and achieve huge success with, right? Like,
yep.
And we may have even seen double Desert Storm in the past too. It just didn't occur to me that that's what they would do.
I had never seen that before, actually.
That was pretty slick. That was pretty slick. So
now you could do it more safely, right? Like, imagine if their sixth skill was Dust Up, and you cast the Desert Storm. Yeah, I'm just thinking about like regular people's arcs right now for a second. Like, you cast the Desert Storm early in the arc fight, then you time warp to the death, and then if you want to use Dust Up at that point, you actually only need like 11 points. You know, you don't have to regen perfectly and use energetic perfectly. It's not that many more points than the 10 that we're used to using.
I kind of wonder about the combination of skills there. I guess Dust Up and Heaven's Grace was better than To the Death.
Dust Up and Heaven's Grace is, I think so, but I mean, it's, yeah, in most cases it's true, especially with these like very big marches and like extremely good gear that makes you a bit tankier.
I meant Desert Storm and Heaven's Grace.
Desert Storm.
Yeah, you know what I meant. Okay.
Yeah,
well, there's the arc score. That's an 8,900, or I guess we'll call it an 8,000 point game. There's no way they out provisioned by 8,000 points. So this is looking like it's pretty well locked up for 748W.
Yep. Very dominant performance on that third arc for sure. And, you know, they just created too many problems in this match for 2377. I mean, from the very start of the match, when they stole those 3 outposts and got the first occupation on those 3 outposts, they just created so many problems for 2377. And at times, I think 2377 handled things like pretty well. They did pretty good on the occupation game. They took the first arc, and did some decent no mark usage, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think this was just like a very good performance by 748W. And like I said, this is modern arc play right here. They definitely understand the game better than either you or I do, I think.
Yeah, both teams here are incredibly skilled. This is the best of the best in the world. So it doesn't get much better than this.
And tomorrow we will be seeing 748W going against 60GT in the next round of the losers bracket. There's still a long way to go in this Grand Prix. We've got 2 Chinese teams in the upper bracket finals, but there are a lot of very, very dangerous teams lurking around in the lower bracket. And I think a number of teams in the lower bracket who do have the potential to win the whole tournament still.
Pretty hype. I'm just watching this altar get pressured here, but that is fizzled out, and I think reality is kind of setting into the tempo of the match right now, where there's just not a lot of options here with 3 minutes left to put points on the board. It's interesting how aggressive the no mark was at the start. We'll see what the final score looks like, but we can start to take some guesses as to like, okay, so let's say they'd held on to their outposts at the start of the match. Would that be a difference maker? right? Like we could start to look at that, but I don't think the final score is going to be that close. Like I think your initial prediction of like, yeah, it's going to be like a 6,000 point W for 748W is going to kind of work out that way. And I do think the provisioning score here could be big, but in fact, quite big, because almost no provisions have been scored here for, oh no, I take it back. You know, actually, I read that backwards. 2377 has in fact scored probably half their provisions. So I actually don't think we're going to see that much of a jump on the board.
Yeah, they might end with about 4,000, maybe 4,500. Couple of things to note here. Number one, the final skill was War Drums for 2377. I almost, I think if the last mid fight had been closer, they might have cast War Drums instead of the Desert Storm because it would have lasted so long. The other thing that I think is interesting is that 2377 is actually winning in terms of kill points to severely woundeds. They've out-ratioed the winning team here by about 10%. And you don't really see that often. You really don't see a very comfortable win for one team, but the other team actually be the better fighting unit. There's some variance in that. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily like the better fighters, but very interesting to me that 2377 competed that well on the field here.
I am just thinking about that, and it's like I wonder if, like, I don't know, they didn't particularly go for buildings more. Like, one strategy or another just sort of makes you trade worse potentially, but I don't think so. Yeah, 30 seconds left. Not a lot of points left to be had here. It's just a question of, I think, how much 748W wins by at this point as the final provisions come in.
Yeah, they're going to try to set as good of a stamp on this thing as they can. Another really good win for 748W. After that loss to Beer a few weeks ago, they have looked very strong, and they even looked strong in the Beer match. So, I mean, just get used to this team. This is really one of the best Ark of Osiris Grand Prix teams out there anywhere. And they took you down today, Chisel. They took down the mighty 2377.
They sure did. They sure did. GG's. Yeah, see that provisioning score, I knew it'd be pretty big. I was thinking it could be close to 6K, 5.3K.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
For GV. Yeah, to the 1.1 in 748. Wow. There you have it. The Arcs were a pretty major vice there for 2377. If they'd gotten one of those Arcs, that would have been enough.
Yep.
So they one Arc short there, because that point swing is just that big. There you have it. If y'all enjoyed the stream today, throw a like on here, subscribe to the channel. Congratulations to both teams for their excellence, and to 748W for advancing to the next fight. 2377 is at this point eliminated. And we go back to focusing on KVK. If you enjoyed the stream, throw a like in here, subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow to cast again. All right, until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.